You are now listening to the Region 10 Report with your host, Suzanne Posel from OccupyCorporatism.com, where the alternative media gets their news. This show will expose the elite domination plan, disinfo agents, propaganda, corporate control, and the UN plan to strip the world of its freedom and the U.S. of its constitution. This is the Region 10 Report with Suzanne Posel, bringing you the real truth behind the news.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Region 10 Report. I'm your host, Suzanne Posel. I'm joined by my co-host, David Posel. Just wanted to let you know that we're on AFR on Friday nights, 11 Central to midnight. And if you miss our show, you can listen on radio.occupycorporatism.com. You can also download iTunes podcast, Spreaker.com, Blog Talk Radio, Shoutcast. We're also broadcast on the Prepper Podcast Network and UCY.tv. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check OccupyCorporatism.com every day. I post 3 articles every day, 6 days a week, so you can come and get your news. Today we're going to have a guest in the second and last part of the show, Pete Santilli from the Pete Santilli Show. He's also on AFR Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Central to 1. And he's going to come on and talk about what's going on with how alternative media is attacked and how when we tell the truth, some people don't want us to, and how they try and stop us from getting the truth out. In this first segment, I want to go over a couple of my articles that I put out this week that are very important. I got a lot of requests, my listeners, and from my readers to talk about the Bitcoin article that I put out this week. So the title of the article is Globalist-Controlled Bitcoin Becomes Bank Supported by Technocrats. Now, a lot of people think of Bitcoin as something that's, it's not really that scary. It's just Bitcoin, you know? It's digital currency. And we talk a lot about how the globalists, how the technocrats are going to get us away from our fiat. And we see the implosion of fiat all across the world right now, especially in the Eurozone. Here in the United States, the technocrats are buying up land. Bernanke is buying at $85 billion a month. He's buying up our mortgage-backed securities. He's the biggest landowner ever in the history of our country.
Or will be.
Or will be as soon as he's finished. And it's QE3 indefinitely. So how long would it take for him to acquire all the land in the United States? Well, he says indefinitely. And I agree with him. Because I've spoken with people in the foreclosures industry. I have a friend who works with the Staffney Law Firm in Washington State. And I've asked her questions about how many properties were bundled up. And the answer is nobody knows. It just keeps getting higher and higher. And while people are being foreclosed on, more people are being foreclosed on. More people are entering the foreclosure process. So how do we know when it's going to stop? When they own our country. So the European Central Bank has decided, along with other technocratic banks, that they're going to start a liquidation process. And this includes our Federal Reserve, the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, and the Swiss National Bank. And what they're doing with the liquidation process is they're propping up the fiat while they're turning the fiat into hard assets. So they're making it look like we have some road to hoe. We have a little ways to go before our communist in chief, like a shepherd, leads us over the fiscal cliff. But really what's going on is they're buying the hard assets. They're forcing Greece and Spain to hand over sovereign debt. And what does that mean? Sovereign debt means that they're going to own Greece. They're going to own Spain. They're going to own France. They want the land because their fiat is going to become useless. And they know this. They're the ones printing the money, so they're going to implode it because they want Bitcoin or something like Bitcoin to become the global reserve currency. Right now, the U.S. dollar is the global reserve currency, and that means that all other fiat currencies are based on the worth of the dollar. But we all know that the dollar is being devalued at an astronomical rate. And so the people who are printing the money are making it so that the money is not worth anything and they have to have something to replace it. So when I wrote this article on Bitcoin, what shocked me the most was it's an experimental digital currency. And it's now been given status as a payment service provider by French financial institutions. And these are central banks in France. And what does that mean? That means that Bitcoin now, you can have a debit card with Bitcoin. You can have a bank account with Bitcoin. You can trade all of your fiat currency, all of your digital currency in your bank account, all the fiat that you have in your wallet, and trade it in for Bitcoins and use it all over the globe. And this has no basis in reality. There's no actual Bitcoin. They have these little things that you can buy that represent the idea of Bitcoin. But it now has an international bank ID number, which means that it allows transactions through PayPal and WorldPay and other digital payment networks. Like I said, you can have a debit card. It enables monetary transfers to other banks and will accept transfer of digital currency at their location. So they're setting Bitcoin up to be the digital currency that has no basis in reality. There's no fiat that you can trade Bitcoin for. You can't open up your wallet and pay with Bitcoin unless you have the Bitcoin debit card. But you don't have any money anymore. So when we talk about how are they going to transfer all of this actual money, well, these federal notes, these pieces of paper that they say is legal tender and what we're using to trade with, how are they going to transfer that to something digital? Well, they already have it. And they're setting Bitcoin up to be a viable bank account, a viable bank that is established worldwide. So you don't have to worry about your fiat anymore. You don't have to worry about the worth of the dollar or the euro. If they're going to take Bitcoin to the next level, which I think that it's quite possible that they will, then this will be a digital currency that allows parties to transact directly with each other without the need of trusted third parties. So it's anonymous transactions. You don't have to physically show up. You can be on the other end of your screen. But it's digital. You can't go into a bank and trade your Bitcoins for fiat. You can't actually have your money in your hand anymore. So if they want to, they can just shut off your Bitcoin account. And then you don't have even the digital currency that you once thought you had. So this is extremely serious. This article needs to go out to as many people as possible. And if you're listening to this broadcast, I ask you please to go on my website and look at this article and share it. It's already gone viral, but it needs to go beyond that. Because there's an article coming out on my website tomorrow that I want everyone to understand. I spoke last week about the attacks that I had on my website and the attacks that I had personally about talking about the cyber attacks planned on banks. And we saw earlier this year that this nameless, faceless hacker group calling themselves with Arabian names that were somehow linked. Joseph Lieberman, Senator Joseph Lieberman said that they were linked to Iran and they were attacking banks. Well, now this is serious. Because they're saying that McAfee Labs is saying that there is a cyber attack planned for the spring of 2013 that will steal millions of dollars from customer accounts. This is exactly what I was saying. This is what I've been saying since March. And this is what got me in so much trouble for saying. Because I think you should get your money out of the account. Close your account. If you have an account that you do business with, keep the bare minimum amount of money that you need in order to keep your business going. But seriously, take the rest of it out. And if you have to, stick it under your mattress. At least you have the fiat. You know, when we talk about devaluation of the dollar and we talk about the implosion of fiat across the world, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens incrementally. So even though our U.S. dollar is going down, it doesn't mean that in a month or a year that people are not going to still be trading these federal notes. But
you don't think that George Soros is trading bitcoins. He's obviously invested in gold, and so are all the other technocrats. You really ought to think about that. I'm not saying that you should be like them, but I think you should look at the steps that they're making. These are the people that own the banks, that own the investment houses, own the insurance companies. Where are they putting their money? Solid assets, gold.
Yeah, George Soros traded in his stock in Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan Chase for actual gold.
They're not stupid.
No, they're not. So this article that's coming out tomorrow, it's titled, "Be Warned, False Flag Cyber Attack Planned on Banks Will Steal Your Money." They are planning on stealing all of that digital money, that money that you have sitting in the bank account, that thanks to the Sentinel Management Group here ruling on August 9th is their property. When you deposited your money into the bank, it became theirs. It belongs to them. So these cyber criminals, the nameless, faceless hackers that we can't ever see, but they swear that they're there, are going to attack 30 banks with a Trojan virus to remove digital currency from banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank, PayPal, and eBay. By the way, PayPal used to be owned by Peter Thiel, who's on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Wachovia, Capital One, Bank of America, SunTrust, E-Trade, Ameritrade, and guess what, guys? Navy Federal Credit Union. So this is governmental. And your credit unions, people say all the time, and I hear this a lot in the Occupy movement, oh, but I have a credit union account. That doesn't matter. In fact, if you go on my website and look at it, I've written articles about how the banks, the 6 mega banks in our country, are buying up all of the small banks, including the credit unions. If you want to know who actually owns your money, find out who owns your credit union. It's not always innocuous. Usually it's J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. They've bought up a lot of banks. So it's reported that 300 bank accounts have already been affected in the U.S. They were beta testing this virus. So be warned. I'm warning you. When you go on my website tomorrow morning, you will see this article. Please make it go viral. Please share it with your friends. Anyone who has a bank account needs to know that you need to get your money out before you lose it, because you will lose it. And at the very least, at least you have it in your hands. At least you have the fiat in your hands so that you know that you've got it. I also want to talk about, in the last few minutes of this first segment, I wrote an article this week. Obama revision to FOIA rules keeps evidence of vaccine dangers from public. Now, we all know that the vaccines are dangerous. But in 2011, the Obama administration proposed revising rules concerning the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA documents, to allow federal agencies to conceal information requested, to fabricate information or deny information existed to citizens based on protecting national security secrets, and if those requests under FOIA would jeopardize the issuance, they would issue a GLOMR response, which means that the government would neither confirm nor deny the existence of the requested material. So FOIA does not mean that you get the information that you requested. If they say that it's going to go against national security, then they're not going to give it to you. And over in England, a doctor put out a report that showed unequivocally, emphatically, that our vaccines are absolutely 100% dangerous. And the vaccines that she got through a FOIA request in England are the same vaccines that are on the schedules for our children here in the United States. She found that her report, she found that the governmental agency over in England was suppressing access to contrary research to ensure adherence to vaccine schedules. Collaborations between the government and pharmaceutical companies to hide risks and dangers of side effects in the insert information packets. Used bogus studies to justify the use of vaccines. Used propaganda to coerce the public into keeping up with vaccine schedules. Promoting more vaccines without providing information on their viability or necessity. Just keep, puncturing your kids, putting in this crap into their veins. Who cares? Thwarting research explaining the dangers of vaccines. and used public ignorance against parents while engaging in fear-mongering to ensure that they adhered to vaccine schedules. I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. There is nothing worse that you could do to a parent than to tell them that they're doing something bad to their children. And when you go to a pediatrician and they tell you that this vaccine is going to help your child, and then a month later your child has seizures, and the pediatrician says, oh, whoops, I don't know what's going on. And then you find out after they've been vaccinated again that they have seizures again. And there's a direct correlation between febrile seizures and the vaccines. And your pediatrician says, oh, but you got to keep vaccinating. No, the natural immune system that we have is propped up by the food and drink that we give it. And if we're healthy, then we don't need the vaccines. You know what's in these vaccines? Mercury and aluminum. Yeah, that's bad. Thimerosal, which is a mercury-based preservative, that's really horrible. That causes autism. Foreign protein particles, that's going to mess up your DNA. That's going to mess up your body's ability to function. But formaldehyde? What does a living body need with formaldehyde? Studies have shown that people who work in funeral homes and mortuaries who are exposed in limited doses just by breathing in formaldehyde have a higher risk of developing cancer. And we're going to inject this into our children? Laundry detergent? Why would we inject laundry detergent into a human body, especially a child whose cells are dividing at a higher rate, who need their immune system to combat diseases, and honestly, folks, who need to get sick to build up their immune system? So when we come back from this break, guys, I am going to have Peter Santilli online, and we are going to expose what goes on behind the scenes in the alternative media. Please stay seated and don't go away.
Hi, this is David Posel with the Region 10 Report. I want to introduce Blue X Baxter today. He's a really good friend of ours. He also supplies music for our show, and this is song number 308, track 8, off of Blue X Baxter's album, When Quantum Mechanics Met Religion. Take a listen to this. I think you'll really enjoy it. You can also listen to other songs of his if you visit store.bluexbaxter.com.
Everything's roaming on endlessly. Guess we can love by default. Hell, if I tell you my back's slowly breaking, you'll probably stand me on the wall. Slowly now shaking and patiently baiting my last breath, believed to be well. Terrified blues and the patriots gaming and nationalists dodging a truce. Tell me how you feel. I saw a man with credentials impeccable be painted a thief by an anti-rebellion disguised as his parents, but really a howitzer coming from Ireland, but really the church. While a man in a suit on a tube watched a genocide, all to apologize after it's over, then took the one witness who knew what he's up to and put him in prison. The nut house of doctors to stare at his homeland and beg for one reason: they're exporting healthcare and calling it bullets, then taking the A-team of most brilliant psychics to fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots brandishing brand names of one corporation or conflagration, the most holy train wreck of all human history. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel. a squad of 6 popular brothers. One came from the earth and a third from his father. Move power in vacuums and leave nothing personal. Concentrate movement to things unattended. Interpreted backward, perceived by the masses to be the godfather of all of the government. Why you forsake me, son? I am a bastard. You're much more than that. We must go to high water. The minute that I get there, I see the bronze statue, the goddess of war, in her glory and aptitude, graciously tracing my measure of poetry, tying my numbers, contractors, defense, and denying the times of the love were at ease, when at odds with establishment, iron war upkeep, while asking one question for answering it first, as the central intelligence eats the whole world. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel. I sat in the sun and I watched as it wilted, as my own republic sold me out as a fugitive, turned a bright color of gray, molded jacket and called it a miracle. Eyes always slanted and speaking a language not known by the polarized, chained me a victim and bought me a box kite, then turned me electric while no one ate acid. I bubbled and blasted the acts of invincible anti-coherence and minds of no filter, just avid intestine and galley of peanuts, a year of no working recession, controlling to starve out the artist to slay. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel.
That was Blue X Baxter. Again, you can catch him at store.bluexbaxter.com. He's also on iTunes. Get an album. I think you're going to love it. It's absolutely money well spent. He's a wonderful man. I've worked side by side with him for many years, and he really gets it. That was the album When Quantum Mechanics Met Religion, track 8.
Fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots brandishing brand names of one corporation, or conflagration, the most holy train wreck of all human history. Tell me how you feel.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming back with us. This is the Region 10 Report. I'm your host, Suzanne Posel, and I have a very special guest with me. He is Pete Santilli of The Pete Santilli Show. He's on AFR on Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 Central. And that's Pacific time. I'm sorry. I'm on the West Coast.
1 to 3 Central, thank you.
1 to 3 Central. And he's a really good friend of mine, and he is a great member of the alternative media. I can't say anything bad about him. He's got high integrity, and he really cares about his listeners, and he really cares about getting the truth out, which is why he had Dr. Judy Wood on his show for 2 days. And went all out to have a great presentation for her, not just on the radio, but a visual presentation so people could see the pictures and hear the audio that she was describing and really get a good understanding of what was going on 9/11. So I'm going to bring Pete up on the... Pete, are you there?
I'm not only here, but I've been injected with liquid tide and formaldehyde, and I'm just coming off of this 2-day blitz with Dr. Judy Webb, still walking, not wounded in the least, but thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I wanted you on the show today because a lot of horrible things have been going on in alternative media, and people just don't understand. They go to these websites that have a lot of reputation for being out there, for purveying the truth. And you and I get to know these people personally, the people who are running these websites. And we may even have their phone numbers in our cell phones, and we have their personal emails, and we get to know them really well. And that's a large reason, well, that is the reason why you and I left, you left GCN, and I told Alex Jones that I didn't want to be part of his charade anymore. And we decided that even if it meant one person at a time, even if it meant we lose clicks on our website or we lose coverage over the stratosphere that is the alternative media, the billion-dollar business that it is, that it didn't matter because we were in it for the truth, right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. We were talking earlier. As a matter of fact, if we get into the minutia and all the details as to what's actually happened to us through this whole experience, there's some pretty compelling stories to tell about how we've been attacked. But when you step back and look at it and look at the whole picture as to who you and I have been going up against, we've gone head to head with Zionism, against Zionism. As you remember, the whole Patrick Clausen thing when that came about. And by the way, if you ever want me to play that during your segment, just let me know. But when we went up against Patrick Clausen, we were literally going up against Zionism. We've gone up against the CIA. We've gone up against the Pentagon, the federal government. And this is not an exaggeration. I've published a report that outed the fact that 5,200 Pentagon officials were downloading kiddie porn. I put that up on YouTube. And that combined with Dr. Judy's presentation, which essentially goes up against the oil industry, multi-trillion-dollar industry. Well, it's no doubt that alternative media is nothing but a pawn biatch on their behalf to stop us, and we will not be deterred. I'm serious. I'm so invigorated by all of this. They can turn off my YouTube. They can disconnect my Twitter. They can shut down my website, and they have within the past 24 hours, and that will not stop me.
Isn't that interesting? You had Judy Wood on, and like you just said, within 24 hours, your Twitter account has been shut down. Your YouTube account has been shut down. We're waiting to see if Facebook shuts you down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my Facebook account is on. Yeah.
You've had an amazing amount of attacks on your website to the point where they have to give you a new server.
Right.
I mean, this is and this is professional. This isn't like some nameless, faceless, anonymous hacker sitting out there in the stratosphere. This is premeditated. This is against you, and this is to shut you down because you're going to tell the truth. And I know your tagline is whether they like it or not, but that means, in all honesty, no matter what the truth is, and no matter if it shifts your paradigm, and you're willing to go through that shift, like with Dr. Judy Wood, and the difference between a controlled demolition and evidence of directed energy weapons being used. And like we were talking earlier today, personally, the fact that they use directed energy weapons means that we have access, somebody has access to using free energy. So we don't need the grid anymore. We don't need the utilities companies anymore. We don't need the oil industry anymore. Mm-hmm. I've seen people put Taurus generators into their cars and run their cars, so you don't need gasoline anymore. You don't need oil anymore. So we're talking about taking all that money out of their pockets and giving people free energy. And they used this for bad in 9/11. They destroyed the towers just to see if they could. And that's one thing that really gets me. You would kill 3,000 people in a building who had no idea what was going on, like lab rats, just to see if you can? What do you think of that?
You know, I think that through this whole experience, I mean, as we go after the Pentagon, we go after all these entities. When I finally realized what Dr. Judy Wood's presentation was all about, it is so huge on behalf of all of humanity. I call her a beautiful soul, but the bottom line is this is a fact, is that the people who have been trying to quash all of this evidence about 9/11 are the same people that have been trying to quash cold fusion. On behalf of who? On behalf of this big oil industry. We're talking about shutting down all the major oil companies. The largest corporation in the world is ExxonMobil, shutting down the Saudis. Do you think that they would kick Alex Jones $100,000 to have him sick some trolls on me? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you think he would take it because he's a just a bubbling, just blubbering used car salesman?
All he cares about is clicks on his website. He isn't interested in a story unless he broke it. You know, he claims to have insider information. A lot of the information that I find that he got from insiders is actually public knowledge. In fact, there's a website called Public Intelligence, and anyone who goes to their website, you can see the actual documents that Alex Jones claims that some anonymous person gave him. It's not that difficult. It just takes a small bit of research to find the actual documents. I mean, I do this all day long.
You know, I think now we've, this thing is so huge, and we will not, they've already realized they can't buy us off. We will not keep our mouth shut. But this thing is so much bigger than Alex Jones. Alex Jones is just a little pawn biatch in the scheme of things. But you know what? By shutting us down, by throwing cinder blocks out into the middle of our raceway, that is, ladies and gentlemen, an attempt to keep you from hearing the truth. That's the only reason why we're being shut down. It's not a personality conflict that we're talking about. You know, I couldn't care less if, my feelings aren't hurt by shutting me down. It just makes me want to speak louder because I believe everyone needs to hear the truth from Occupy Corporatism and the Pete Santilli Show.
Absolutely. That's why I rewrote that article 3 times. I have the same amount of gusto that you do. I can't believe some of the crap that I see when I do the research. I can't believe that there's actual evidence, factual research that has been done by credible scientists on climate change that shows that humans have no bearing on the temperature of the planet, that CO2 has no bearing on the temperature of the planet. And yet everybody is so ignorant, so hyped up on their pharmaceutical and their processed foods and their fluoride that and they're watching this crap on television. They can't get it through their thick heads that all this has to do is Agenda 21, carbon taxes, and global control. That's all it is. And that's the end game for all of this. Agenda 21, global taxes, and global governance. That's where this all leads. Everything else is just a symptom of the problem. But you and I, we're interested in attacking the cancer. We're not interested in treating the symptoms, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we literally, wholeheartedly, 1,000%. And seriously, if I had, just like Dr. Judy Wood said, life means so much more than, wealth, fame, and fortune, and all that other stuff that we have, we're on the rat wheel for. But if I had food, water, shelter, my microphone, I want to represent getting the truth to 7 billion people. And I'll tell you what, soon we'll find out that the truth will have us outnumbering that small, select few elite that are trying to enslave us here on the planet. That's what I'm in this game for. So you can turn everything you want off. My microphone, you can kill me. I couldn't care less. The message needs to go on. 7 billion people need to hear this.
A lot of people want to say something but don't feel like they can. And, for me, doing radio interviews was hard because it was hard to come out from behind the screen and actually talk to people. I didn't really think anybody wanted to hear what I had to say if I wasn't writing it down. And I was surprised that people wanted to hear what I had to say beyond the articles. And having my own radio show is, again, another shock that people want to hear what I have to say. And it's invigorating to be able to discuss things that I don't always get to because I'm only one person writing these articles. What inspired you beyond Alex Jones? What is it about you that makes you want to talk about it in such a public forum?
I've always, ever since I was young, a kid, I recognized that something was very, very wrong with the fact that the whole system exploits the fact that people are generally just a bunch of dumb sheep. And I always recognized that. I didn't know exactly how they did it, but I said, maybe I can play a role, as a capitalist, as a free market capitalist. I believe that I'm sharp, but I'm going to use that power of influence over the people that I'm touching for good. And I've always said to myself, I'm not going to use this power of persuasion and my communication and ability to use it for evil. And when I got into the radio business, I said, I want to use everything that I've prepared for since I was a little kid to talk to as many people as possible, just one person at a time. If I can awaken one person at a time to the truth, that's who I represent and what I'm about. And that's how I'm building a listenership that is just growing naturally. I don't want to force it. My goal has always been if I could wake up one person a day to the truth. Eventually, we will stick together, will coagulate, and we will outnumber them. And the truth, and a bunch of awakened, independent thinkers is the greatest weapon ever in the history of the planet and all of mankind. There is no weapon that they could ever use against us when we understand what that energy is all about that they used on 9/11, for instance.
Absolutely. I write a lot about all of these vaccines and pharmaceuticals that are just screwing up your neurological capabilities. They're just blocking all sorts of transmitters and making it impossible for people to think clearly. And it's not just the processed food, and it's not just the fluoride. It's everything. It's the chemtrails. It's everything. And these people, 80% of the world's population, just aren't able to process information to understand that this is really true, that it's not a conspiracy theory, that there are about 400 or 600 people, along with thousands of their minions, but it's really about 400 or 600 people that are trying to control the planet, and it's been this way for centuries, and this is nothing new. And we're seeing what we think of as a speeding up of the process. I attribute personally to how fast I'm waking up. Do you find that too? I mean, you learn things and you research and you realize that this is actually true, and it speeds up your awareness of everything around you.
Oh, yeah. They say that once you wake up, you can never go back. I mean, I don't have any regrets. I look at it, just kind of say to myself, just like, Susanna Cole has always told me, the steak tastes so much better inside the matrix. And ignorance is, it looks to be bliss, but I don't know. As I awaken, I'm basically just unraveling right in front of my listenership. I'm waking up to a lot of these things right in front of our listenership. And I think that's what makes our bond that we have with our listenership so solid. People can't just come in and steal independent thinkers from us, because we teach them, look at the evidence. Look at the stuff right in front of you. You make a decision on your own. And that's what I'm in this for, is to be in a community of free thinking individuals that make up their own mind versus have it spoon-fed to them.
Now, I want to throw something at you, because you mentioned it on the show today about the shooting. And I wrote an article that's going to be coming out tomorrow about it as well. But we're trained in the alternative media to think of any shooting as a false flag immediately, even before we look at the evidence. And we see the initial reports, and they're always convoluted. There's always, we saw this with the $43 trillion lawsuit and the 2 small children who were murdered by their nanny. And you and I worked on that article extensively. And we saw multiple reports that didn't make any sense. And all the initial reports had something else to say. And then they had this woman in an induced coma for 3 or 4 weeks. And then when she woke up, she had no memory. And most people would jump and say, MK Ultra. Oh my God. She was seeing a psychiatrist, so she was obviously hypnotized. And this was all a plot. But like you just said, how often in the alternative media do we look at all the evidence and at least take the time to not jump on a bandwagon as soon as news hits, to sit back and watch and see what happens in order to find out exactly what's going on so we can prepare for what's eventually coming?
Mm-hmm.
Because Obama's going to do this assault ban. And I'm coming up on a break here soon. So I want to get your thoughts on the other side of it. But we know that Obama's going up on this assault weapons ban. And Clinton used the Columbine shooting in order to get that done, get it started. And on the other side of the break, I want you to tell the listeners what you think about all of this, using factual evidence instead of just jumping to conclusions. So guys, don't go away. We're going to be back with Pete Santilli from the Pete Santilli Show, and you are listening to the Region 10 Report.
Fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots brandishing brand names of one corporation, or conflagration, the most holy train wreck of all human history. Tell me how you feel.
everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is the Region 10 Report. I have Pete Santilli with me, and before we went to break, we were talking about waiting. The alternative media loves to jump on a story, and as soon as something happens, we like to call it. You know, we see patterns in the media when we report on things, and maybe we become a little desensitized to what's going on. And with your presentation with Dr. Judy Wood, and I've done research on her as well, and I think that the evidence, waiting for the whole thing before we can call it as we so, quote unquote, see it, is more important to getting the truth out than it is to jump and have an article out on your website and be able to say, hey, I covered that story. What do you think?
Just like I was very sincere, and it's not even in a debate. I believe that based on my analysis of the trends, okay, because I've learned to look at the facts, right? Just look at those hard, cold facts, especially as they come out from what we typically call a false flag event. And you could look at those previous events and say, oh my goodness, they're doing the same thing here coming up on the next event. So is speculation good? No, speculation is not good, but understanding what the trends are every time a false flag comes about and how they're tied to their political agenda, I think it's important to understand those facts very clearly so that you can look to see whether or not something is a false flag event in the future.
So with Columbine, and they're comparing this to Columbine, they're comparing it to the Sikh shooting, they're comparing it to James Holmes and the Batman shooting. Mm-hmm. And with Columbine, there was a big push on assault weapons. And we know that they basically want to take away everything except a BB gun, and they'll probably take that too. A slingshot, maybe they'll take that as well.
Right.
We've got the United Nations trying to take guns globally, disarm the entire world, and everyone will be peaceful. So
Susan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You know what, though? This is really, really important. Columbine, you just touched on something that's huge that has to do with this topic right here. This is the perfect example of what we're talking about. If you dig into the minutia of Columbine and the actual facts, talking to the victims, such as Mark Taylor, you'll discover that Columbine took place because some kids were, excuse the expression, they were butt raped before the event. They were forced medicated because of their psychological trauma that they'd suffered by the police department. The sheriff's department actually did this. These kids were actually under the influence of medication that Mark Taylor, as the victim of Columbine, fought against. He fought against Big Pharma. Now, do you hear any of this as it's related to them using Columbine for their political agenda to get assault weapons taken away? No,
Absolutely
they don't reveal the truth. They don't reveal the facts.
And in the alternative media, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about the fact that TEPCO in Fukushima was giving the workers radiation monitors wrapped in lead so that they would come back with readings that were far less than what was actually happening. We don't talk about that in the alternative media.
No.
We don't talk about the actual truth of what's going on. We're more concerned about the conspiracy theory of the nukes and the infighting between the Dragon Society and all the Benjamin Fulford crap that's going out, that we're not talking about the fact that we have nuclear reactors that are going bad, and we have people who are covering it up just long enough for Obama to put in, did you see this in the news? He's going to start funding, thanks to his good friend Valerie Jarrett, windmills and turbines. So we're going to be dumping all of this money that we don't have into green energy. And we saw what he did with Abound Solar and Valerie Jarrett. He gave her, $40 million, and she put it in her back pocket and said, thanks a lot. And then her company went bankrupt, and now she's under criminal investigation. But she's sitting up in the White House as his advisor, so she doesn't care. And this is what's going on. We've got Al Gore talking about carbon credits, and he's got a company that will sell you the carbon credits. Isn't that fortuitous? You got a problem, he's got a solution.
Well, you got a problem, he's got a tax without representation. Al Gore represents taxation without representation for his personal benefit.
Right. We've got Lord Monckton going into the UN Climate Change Conference and presenting factual research evidence showing that there is no connection between the activities of man and the effects that we're seeing as climate change. Which, by the way, folks, with all the research I've done on climate change, I've come to realize that the effects that we call global warming is actually the byproduct of all of the geoengineering that we're doing across the planet. But that's right. for another broadcast.
You said activity.
Conservatively.
There you go.
Even my 6-year-old can't say it wrong when he tries to intimidate that guy.
Sorry about that. My soundboard's still open.
That's okay. I think it's good to show people stupidity so we know what to watch out for.
You know what I love Lord Monkton for? He parachutes into these events. He sneaks in with fake credentials to like UN meetings and stuff.
He's dressed up like a Saudi Arabian. I've got the video. It's in the article coming out tomorrow. It's fantastically funny. And he shows up, and they actually escorted him out with security. They threw him out after he presented this document.
Yeah. I like that. I feel like I have my parachute on in an alternative media. That's what we've done here. We've just parachuted in with fake credentials.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're being exposed by so-called exposers. And you know what the funniest thing to me is that it doesn't change. You know, that people have tried to shut me down. People are trying to shut you down right now. In 3 months, you're still going to be here. I'm still here. So what did they accomplish? Absolutely nothing.
No. And can I mention something as to, like, if you're listening to this and you look at our story, the only reason why I'm telling this story, I'm not looking for a pity party by any way, shape, or form. I mean, we will recover. I will speak until my last dying breath, and the truth shall live on. I already know that. Bill Cooper was killed, and his message still lives to this day. You can't even kill the truth. Okay, I believe that all of the listeners need to take our example and say, you know what? This is how we're going to support the truth. They cannot, and in the face of tyranny, they cannot shut people down like us. And you as a listener need to say, I need to support these people's efforts and to do everything I can. You can shut his YouTube account down, but we're going to spread his message 10,000-fold by sharing, the podcast, the episodes, just as long as you believe that we're presenting evidence like we have with Dr. Judy. And we're letting you make the decision with a free and clear mind. Share this message with as many people as possible, because YouTube is not going to determine whether or not you get to hear the truth.
Exactly.
Twitter's
the NSA.
Not going to, the NSA or the CIA. These pukes are not going to know it. Are not going to stifle the truth.
Right. And being somebody who came from a stay-at-home mom who was just fed up with being lied to, there are hundreds of thousands of stay-at-home moms sitting out there listening to us right now. Get fed up enough to start talking about it. You know, if they take me down or they take Pete down, let 1,000 rise up in our place. Because that's the only way we're going to stop this. I think, Pete, you agree with me. We need to stop complying with this system. And the quicker we do that, the faster their demise is going to be. They're so successful with us going along with their system because we're so scared. We're so scared of losing our job or losing our mortgage or losing our pension. But if we just stopped complying with the system and we started growing our own food and we started taking care of our own, learn how to fix your own house, learn how to sew a button on your shirt so you don't have to go out and buy another one.
Learn how to post on Vimeo versus YouTube. You know, I'm going to try to appeal to YouTube to reactivate my account. But I'm thinking to myself, if they don't want to do it, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to expose them for what they are, and then I'm just going to stay on Vimeo. I'll opt out of YouTube. I don't need them. They're not the ones that are going to control 7 billion people. The 7 billion people that are on this planet will.
Exactly. Everyone listening to my broadcasts and your broadcasts, we all have a choice. Every single day we have a choice. Throughout the day we make millions of choices. And with every choice that we make that opts out of the system, we're causing a problem for them. And that's what we should be doing. We should
Can I have a cheap, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I have a cheap, shameless plug before we part?
Absolutely. You go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, every single day, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, tune in to find out why the Pentagon, the Jesuits, the CIA, the Zionists want to shut me down. And I, in the face of tyranny, will go right up against them. YouTube doesn't control me. Nobody controls me. control me. You can try to shut me down. You'd have to shut down AFR, and I'm sure they'll try that too. So plug your ears.
Go and listen to him. I've been working with Pete for almost a year now, and I have to say, personally, he's one of the most incredible people that I've ever known in my entire life. He is honest. I would trust him with my children, and that's saying a lot.
I never heard you say that.
You are an awesome man, and to have worked with you on articles, I've worked side by side with you, and when we do our brainstorming sessions, we'll check our own facts. We're all on the computer, you and me and Susanna Cole, and we send each other links, and we say, oh no, that's no good, or this is great, or it's amazing to work with somebody who takes everything that they've learned in their life and applies it to seeking the truth and getting it out to people so that we aren't stuck in this hamster wheel anymore, and empowering people to break out of it. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. You've been listening to the Region 10 Report, and I am your host, Suzanne Posel. I will be back next Friday, 11 Central to midnight. If you missed it, you can go to radio.occupycorporatism.com and listen to the rebroadcast, and we will join you next week on the Region 10 Report. Thanks for listening.